So let's talk about the main antagonist of Antediluvian. Okay, so we know it's a pre-flood era. It's biblically based in the Noahic, before the Noahic flood, right? But what are your main protagonists? So you are a character, or you create characters, or run a campaign if you're a GM, adventure, whatever, based around the premise that wickedness came through the fall of Adam and Eve, right? So the fall of Adam. Now, he was removed so he wouldn't stay broken eternally if he ate from the tree of life. Humanity left, Adam and Eve's sons grew, and then when we get to Genesis 6, we see that the sons of God, which are the angels, came down, took women of all they chose, procreated with them, and had offspring of the Nephilim, right? So that's where this entire game premise comes from. Now, we borrowed a lot of the apocryphal lore from the Book of Enoch, from Jasher, and stuff like that, and world mythology, just to make a full-fleshed game. But in this game, we are specifically using the Watchers, okay? So those 200 Watchers that descended from heaven, copulated with women, and usurped dominion from Adam. Adam was given dominion over the world. He was told to subdue and rule it, right? So angels did not have that birthright. They didn't have that permission. They are spiritual. We're human. So they didn't have that permission to cross over into our realm and take what God has given us. So what they did was they came up and hatched a plan that if we enter into that dimension, we procreate with these humans, we can take dominion of the world through our children, because they would be human enough to have that birthright. They would have to have that human aspect, and we would rule the world. So their plan was hatched, right? So the Watchers are kind of the bad guys behind the scenes pulling all the strings. Now, for your characters to actually interact with a Watcher is very rare. And I kind of reserved it like that because you know that God puts and binds these angels into the Euphrates River. But at this time, they're still there. I just wanted them a little bit more untouchable to begin with, just because they are divine. They are, God's other creation. He created the race of angels before he created us. They were there singing to our birth. From that unholy union of angels and humanity, the Nephilim were born, right? The Nephilim are your party's main priority. Those are the wicked, just vile, corrupted people that you would most likely encounter in your campaigns, and that should be the driving force that your characters are trying to purge from the world, right? So the Nephilim are not always giants. They're not 30-foot tall, 15-foot tall, 10-foot. They can be, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what they are. That just means that they're half divine, half human, right? In this game. So they could look very human-like. They could look very beautiful, very exotic-looking, even. But it shouldn't be the the lumbering giants that you see in Disney. That's not always the case. And if you want those, sure, fine, put them in. But I'm just trying to say that your characters in the game should not always be able to look at a Nephilim and be like, oh, yeah, they're definitely Nephilim, let's take them out. That doesn't make it a fun, intriguing kind of pursuit of an adventure, So I have it where there's clues, and you could add like the 6 fingers, which is a common indicator. So there are some things you could drop if you want, or don't include them. That way your players actually have to use research and investigation to find out what the real cause of these plagues on their city and their villages and their world they're more inclined to search for answers rather than just kind of attack their way through the game. Now, there's no experience in this game. It is basically a milestone leveling system. So whenever the GM decides that they should be leveled, they're leveled. So there's no reward for hacking, slashing your way through evil forces. There's no reward for handling things the right way. There are faith points for that. But we're getting off topic. So back to Nephilim. We have those, and we have monsters. So monsters are the twisted version of God's creation. So a monster would be like a genetic amalgamation of a creature that was designed by God. You know, and they take that creature and they twist it with genetics and introduce in other human or animal or Nephilim genetics to get that monster to become what it is. So those are going to be the two obstacles that you most likely encounter in your campaigns. Now, demons are when that Nephilim has been destroyed. Throughout time, from that point on, that spirit is forced to wander the world. That spirit is now a demon, right? And they could manifest in various ways. They can manifest in other creatures. They can possess other creatures. They can possess other monsters. They can possess humans. So demons are a little trickier to fight, because if they are possessing a human, you are not under God's will to kill humans. So you have to find a way to purge that demon from that human. And at this time, we don't know, as far as we know, we don't have that power given to us by Jesus Christ through the Holy Spirit to command demons to flee. So they're a little more interactive for you to defeat them and figure out how to purge them from whatever body or creature they are inhabiting and possessing. Okay, so that's kind of the main premise of everything that you're going to be tackling. You still run into God's good creatures, which at this time are not on good grounds with humanity. Humanity's been killing them and eating them for millennia now. And that was not the terms. That was not how God designed us to be with them originally. So, while they are not vile creatures that inherently are just looking for destruction and hatred towards humanity, they still are hostile, and they still prey on humanity, just like you know them to do today, you know. But monsters, on the other hand, are always deceitful and just malevolent, evil creatures. Now, I guess we could kind of address, if that comes up, Nephilim, demons, the Watchers. So divinity is what I explain the Watchers as, because you could have divinity still in the game that are still of the kingdom of God. So they're not the fallen like Satan, his legion, and the Watchers, right? So divinity just kind of incorporates our other family, the angel. There are many ways for those practices in those creatures to have influenced the world around them. The world that you are part of is a fantasy world that you should be familiar with. Most classic RPG kind of fantasy feeling. There's paganistic rituals. Everyone, almost the entire world is entrenched in paganism of some kind. Magic practices can be as minute as white magic, which is, there's no such thing, all the way to like sacrificing ritualistic kind of things that we know happened. I tend to keep my stuff more PG because I have kids. That was hurdles that many of our ancestors had to deal with, right? Those monsters and those Nephilim are teaching practices that are not of God's will to begin with. And there could be different degrees. So just because, let's say, 200 watchers fell, right? That doesn't mean they all perceived the same way to dishonor God, if that makes sense. You know, like one watcher grew to want to be worshipped. Maybe that was his goal. And another watcher was, against being worshipped, because God was still his creator and he felt God should be worshipped. But he wanted to do some other thing that was against God. And I don't have that off the top of my head. But what I'm trying to say is that all the watchers and all the cultures and all the Nephilim that sprung up out of this incursion doesn't necessarily all read the same page. They're not all on the same kind of agenda. They're all doing their own agenda, which is making the world unique and mysterious depending on where you end up in the world. The world is vast, and the way I kind of have it explained is think of it as like Pangea. So the world was all connected as one big landmass. For two animals of every kind had to make it to the ark. There couldn't be major obstacles for them to get there. So I just kind of stuck all the land masses together. So the world is enormous and travel is enormous. So just keep that in mind through your campaigns or your adventures and stuff like that. The world is gigantic, and it's all almost one landmass with lakes and seas and stuff like that sprinkled in it. But there's huge differences in culture from place to place, wherever you go. All right, so you were called out from among your people. So wherever you end up in those cultures or in that world, which are vastly different, they worship their paganistic gods differently. You are familiar with that area because that's where you came from. But you are set apart, so God took you out and has issued you in some form or fashion. Whatever that method is, you are aware of what goes on in your culture, and you are aware of what vaguely goes on in other places, provided you have access to those places. And again, the world is vast, but there's sky travel. There are, Nephilim and Watchers pretending to be gods that could do more than we can as humans. So there's no telling what can kind of transpire, and I put a lot in here for y'all to figure out how far you want to go and how you want to pull back on things. But you are more acquainted with the area that you're from, right? So you have your own language. Everybody speaks, it's called broken creation. So that was the language of Adam. But over 1,000 years, other languages, dialects kind of spawned, and as descendants kind of spread out, those languages changed over time, and everybody now has their own language and their own culture. So it kind of gives you a flavoring to your character. So that's basically the antagonist of the story, the world you're kind of going to be in. So from here, we will, I think I'm going to skip over skills and abilities, and we might do that a little later on with character creation. I think next we're going to get into the faith system, dice mechanics, exhaustion, stuff like that. Kind of explain the backbone of your character, and then transition into creating characters, and then explain skills and what comes along with the abilities, skills, and stuff like that. So thank y'all for sticking with me this far. I know it's been a lot of blabbing. I'm trying to figure out how I can do this a little more efficiently for you, get the page screen size to fit properly and all that. So I know these are rough, and I apologize for that. It's been a minute since I made YouTube videos. But again, thank y'all for hanging out. We're going to get some playtesting going really soon. I would like to host some games, so got a camera. I live out in the sticks. I don't know how well my connection is going to hold up with live streaming and stuff like that, but we'll test it out. Again, thank you all for sticking with me. God bless, and I'm out.